Hello and welcome. Thank you for taking the time to attend our Share and Learn. Today's topic is the secrets to preschool readiness. I'd like to welcome Ms. Laurie, who has taken the time to come and share her knowledge and expertise with us. Your dedication and commitment to early education are genuinely appreciated, and we're so grateful for the opportunity to learn from you. Before we begin, I'd love to have Ms. Laurie tell us a little bit about your background.
Thank you. So thank you, Alice. Thank you for having me today. I'm very excited to be able to share this information with everybody. So I am a preschool director from a local preschool. I've actually been doing this pretty much all of my life. I started out teaching preschool when I was actually a senior in high school, and I taught preschool for many years. I actually got my California teaching credential, and then I taught elementary school for 13 years. So I taught kindergarten through second grade for 13 years. I absolutely loved that, but then this opportunity to become the preschool director kind of fell into my lap, and I thought, well, this might be my next step. And so I decided to kind of take the leap of faith and come out of the classroom and become the director here. And I absolutely love it. I always joke that it's kind of the best of both worlds. It's like being a grandparent. I get to go be in the classroom and be with the kids and hang out whenever I want. And then I get to go back to my office whenever I want. So it's really the best of both worlds. And I love the little guys. So yeah, I'm going into my 29th year of working with young children.
Woo! Yeah. And it seems like, with 29 years of working in the early education field, you have probably seen, a lot. And with today's topic, we name it the secrets because there have been a lot of changes.
Right.
And I think the big question that a lot of the parents are talking about is preschool necessary? It's kind of in a very interesting age span where children are still kind of not ready for school yet, but they're eager to learn. So we want to hear about, from your perspective, is preschool necessary?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. I think that it depends on your family dynamic, of course, but obviously, in my personal opinion, I think preschool is very necessary. I feel like it really sets the foundation to set your child up for success for when they get to kindergarten. And I know you're probably thinking, well, my child's 1 or 2 years old. Do I really need to be thinking about kindergarten already? But the great thing about preschools is that they're set basically on developmental levels. So, as you're doing the different activities with the children, they're not just here to play. The teachers are thinking about where they are developmentally, where they are social and emotionally, what they can add into the curriculum to get that child where they need to be for the next level of preschool. And so I do feel like preschool is very important because it really just kind of sets their foundation for learning for, the rest of their life. They're going to be learning for the rest of their lives. Hopefully they'll be lifelong learners. And so really giving them that good foundation.
And we have so many different kinds of preschools now.
Right.
There are so many different philosophies, different style. And then we may also see an infant classroom within a preschool. So I think, can you tell us a little bit about what you've seen in terms of how preschools are including some of the ages that maybe were not so conventional years ago, and now it's kind of becoming like a huge family,
right?
Kids of all ages,
right? So I can't speak to the infants because we don't have infants here. So we start at 2 years old. Many of our children come to us with no preschool experience. Many of them have been in small home daycares. Maybe they've been home with nannies. Maybe they've been home with grandparents. Especially life in a pandemic, we've seen a lot of that. Even children coming into our preschool at pre-K, which is ages 4 to 5, where they've never been in preschool before. And so really, you want them to have that experience of coming into a classroom, getting to know what does it mean to be part of a classroom. Obviously, in a 2-year-old class, it's going to look very different than it's going to look in pre-K. It's going to look very different than it does in kindergarten when they're expected to be school aged. And so I think, again, kind of going back to those developmental levels, for a 2-year-old class, one thing I should explain is that we are not mixed ages here. So we have 2s, threes, pre-K, and they are separated by ages. I know there are some schools out there that are mixed ages, but here we feel like we can really kind of hit on those milestones for them if they are by age. So, in our 2-year-old class, they're working a lot on language. Some children come to us speaking very little. Some children come to us very articulate and speaking a lot. Some children come to us that speak another language at home other than English. And so really kind of immersing them in that language-rich environment to build conversation, build their vocabulary. We do that a lot here. Personally, we do that a lot through play. So teachers engaging the children in play or engaging with them at the art program. At the art table, different things like that. And then bringing other children into those conversations. So really kind of engaging them in that play, immersing them in that language-rich environment at 2, because that's what they need to be working on at that age.
And developmentally, you mentioned a lot of stages. And do you think that these may become challenges with preschool education when you are evaluating families with kids that are coming from different kinds of learning environments before entering preschool? I think it's, there may be different entrance requirements, assessments, evaluations, but I'm not sure if kids are ready for that.
Right. So at our preschool, we don't have evaluations. Going into elementary school, that's when they need evaluations. For us, it's really about, meeting the families, chatting with the families during the tours, getting to know them, for them getting to know if we're a good fit for your child. Not every school is going to work for each individual child. And it's important to make sure that you visit lots of different preschools, lots of different styles of teaching as well, to see what you think is going to be, the best for your child. We are a play-based hands-on exploration here at our school. There's some that are Montessori, there's some that are Reggio Emilia or Waldorf. But the important thing is to find what's going to be a good fit for your child and your family. And then you have some preschools, which this is how we are, where we've taken a little bit from all of those different philosophies. So you will see different things that we do here that might be a Montessori or a Waldorf, et cetera. And, in terms of children coming from all different, areas, that really is up to the school to kind of get to know that child and figure out what's going to work to help that child transition into school. Some kids want to be held when they first come into school in the morning to transition. Some kids don't want to be held and they want to go run and play. And so, that experience of that transition into preschool is going to be different for every single child. And it's really the job of the school and the teachers to find out what's going to work best for that child to help them transition into the program. I was joking with Alice the other day. I said, there are going to be tears. I'm not going to lie to you. And some of them might be your tears. Some of them might be your child's tears. But that's our job as educators, is to help transition your child into school and get them comfortable being here. And that's the main role in preschool, is to get them comfortable being in school.
Yeah, and you mentioned a very important point, is continuing that experience with the educators, the teachers, the caregivers, so that kids know what it feels like to be in preschool. What about the teacher's background and their credentials? I think there are lots of confusion around that, just misunderstanding. Yeah. You mentioned that you have a teaching credential. Is that something that you can apply in preschool? How does that work?
So that's a great question. It's actually a question I get quite a lot on touring. So preschool teachers don't need the vast amount of education that an elementary school does. So a preschool teacher, their degree is in early childhood education. Basically, everything I've been talking about, that foundation, those developmental benchmarks, all of those types of things are what they're going to be learning about. So it's not about how to teach, it's more about young children. So some of them have their certificates, some of them have an AA degree, some have bachelor's, some have master's in early childhood education. So a California teaching credential is not the same thing as an early childhood education curriculum or background. So they are, kind of two different things. In terms of, the different classes that are taken, you start with child development, and then you learn about curriculum design as specific to young children. So these classes are specifically pinpointed towards, they call it ECE, so early childhood education, which usually means under 5.
I see. And for from your experience, you must have mentored and trained lots of teachers. What do you see as a challenge for teachers now in working together to shape this new, preschool experience after COVID? Or maybe it has always been the same.
Yeah, I think actually the biggest challenge right now, and my teachers, we were just talking about this in a staff meeting recently, is getting back to where we were before COVID. For the last 3 years, preschool has looked so different, between the masking and trying to keep preschoolers 6 feet away from each other while they were playing and having barriers between them in the classrooms while they're eating lunch, like all of those things that are not what you would normally do in, early childhood education, that we had to really pivot what we were doing.
Can you talk a little bit about that part? Because, the 6 foot distance and all that, is that something that is delaying the children's development level, or, what aspect of that you're going to have to catch up and relearn, unlearn?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the thing that the most that we are seeing is some speech delay in children. The good thing is masks are off now. My teachers, I only have a few handful of teachers that are still wearing masks in class. And so I really think that conversational piece that we were talking about and that speech is probably what we saw the most affected in COVID in terms of like friendships and interactions and all that type of thing. I think some children were more adaptable to that than some adults. I was like, they didn't skip a beat. They were like, okay, I have to play inside this square on the floor now. Okay, this is where I play, but I can still yell to my friend, who's 6 feet away from me, but we can still chat and have conversation. And so I think the children were very adaptable to the changes that had to be made in the school. And then we would celebrate the changes as things went slightly back to normal. We would celebrate those with the kids. Like, guess what? We don't have to have barriers up while you're eating lunch anymore. And, we cheer and yell and scream and so celebrate the steps forward that we were making back to normal. Because what we have to remember is these little guys, some of these kids have only lived through the pandemic, so they don't realize what things were like in quote unquote normal times.
And it's interesting that some of the parents were choosing, masking as a requirement for a while.
Right.
That wasn't the norm for school.
Right.
They needed to choose a school that maybe everybody had masks on versus optional. So that's interesting. And do you have any tips or experience guiding parents on how to pre-assess their child's development level, or do you advise for that? What's your personal opinion on that?
I really don't. I mean, I think every child is, unless there's some big red flag, in terms of developmental stages, if your child's absolutely, not speaking at all, no utterances, but I really don't. I mean, I don't feel like there's really a readiness for preschool because that's our job. Again, it's just to get them ready and to be used to being here, is the biggest thing. I always joke that, so our 2-year-old class, we have 3 teachers in that 2-year-old class. And if a little one gets up and wanders away during circle time, we let them wander away, but the teacher will go back and gently guide them back to circle because they need to understand that circle time is a time that we all spend together at circle. But obviously those aren't things they're going to learn, overnight. And so really kind of working with them in those first few months of schools to set up what are our expectations at school. Everybody eats lunch at the same time. We all nap at the same time, all of those types of things.
Maybe it's helpful to kind of rephrase that question. Is my child ready for play? Is my child ready to hang out? Maybe we can play around with that a little bit, not just to, have this big overarching question. Is my child ready for preschool?
Right. Well, I think the thing to know about play, and again, this is where that kind of early childhood development comes in, is that children that are 1.5 to even into 2.5 typically don't engage in play with each other. They'll do what we call parallel play, which means if you're standing across the room, it absolutely looks like they're playing together. But as you get closer, you'll realize that they're actually playing next to each other, but they're not engaging with each other. So our job,
definition of socialization that adults know.
You
know, we connect with each other through eye contact, and kids may not do that at that age.
Exactly. And so we have to teach them how to do that. And so, A teacher might be sitting on the floor with kids playing with trains, engaging them in conversation. So they will eventually start engaging in conversation with each other or engaging in play with each other. But again, it's not like a light switch. It's not going to happen overnight. And that's why I think that, going back to your initial question about is preschool necessary, those are the skills that we're teaching them. We're teaching them those early life skills in preschool that will be valuable to them once they move on to kindergarten.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes back to some of the parents' question that if they're coming from home, whether they're coming from home, a licensed childcare program or not, all of these kids, when they start preschool, they are all starting a brand new experience with set developmental levels set by the school. Is that how we should understand, despite all of these different curriculums? There have different schools of thought.
Right.
It's hard for people to do their thorough research, right? How does that bridge over to kindergarten? This is your area of expertise, and you have been both a kindergarten teacher and a preschool director where you kind of see that integration. Do you think there is a very easy integration there, or it kind of depends where the child comes from in terms of their preschool preparation?
Yeah, I mean, I think, children from all different preschools are going to be successful in kindergarten. Again, I think that goes back to why I think that preschool is important. In terms of kindergarten readiness, if your child's going to public school, all of our pre-K families, and we let them know whether, kind of where their child is and maybe some things that they can work on at home to help, foster that kindergarten readiness. And so I think that's something that's also really important to find out when you're touring a preschool is, how do you ensure that children are ready for kindergarten? What do you do with them to make sure that children are ready for kindergarten? And one other thing kind of in terms of curriculum that I feel very strongly about, and this is where my kindergarten teacher kind of comes out, is, I know a lot of preschools in their pre-K programs, they will do curriculum that's actually a kindergarten program that they kind of just try to bring down to the level of for a pre-K child. But this is their word, that word developmental again, but there's a lot of things in that kindergarten program that developmentally a pre-K child's not ready for. So really ensuring that whatever curriculum they're doing at that pre-K level, yes, we want them ready for kindergarten, but we also want to make sure that what they're doing, they're actually developmentally ready for in order to get them ready for kindergarten. Because if we're giving them things in pre-K that are too challenging and too above them, that's not helping to get them ready for kindergarten. We want to make sure that they're hitting kind of those basic, things in kindergarten, focusing on fine motor and can they hold scissors correctly? Can they hold a pencil correctly? That social and emotional. Can they make full connections with friends in preschool? And so your pre-K teachers are going to be your biggest asset in terms of knowing whether or not your child's ready to go to kindergarten.
So is pre-K also a class in a regular preschool campus?
So preschool is just a fancy way to say the year before they go to kindergarten. So it's really what you would think of as a 4-year-old class. So most of those children are 4, they're turning 5 before they go on to kindergarten.
I see. And for pre-K class, would there be just 1 year right now? Or it kind of depends on the school that they enroll in. Could there be a 2-year pre-K?
There could be. So personally here at our school, we have a young pre-K class. So that class is designed for children who will turn 4 in those early fall months. So they would technically have to do another year before they can go to kindergarten because children have to be 5 before September 2nd to go to kindergarten. So if your child turns 5 on September 1st, they can go to kindergarten. If your child turns 5 on September 2nd, they have to wait a second year before they can go to kindergarten. But here at our school, we have 2 levels of pre-K. So we have that young pre-K class. So all of those children come into that class basically at 3 years old and start turning 4 in that early school year. Whereas all of the children in the other 2 pre-K classes, which are regular pre-K classes, are 4. They will start turning 5 before they go on to kindergarten.
And do you see there needs to be any adjustments when child goes from, say, 2s to a 3s to first year pre-K or pre-K? The word adjustment is used pretty I think pretty loosely, when
Mhm.
people are asking, how do we adjust? I feel like it's a very hard question to answer when you don't know.
It is.
But from your perspective, what are some of the biggest challenge for a child to adjust?
Well, I think, again, kind of going back to what I initially said, is if they've never been in school before, that's going to be that biggest adjustment. Like, oh, wait, I have to sit down at circle time because everybody else is? You know, yes, you do. Wait, I can't have lunch whenever I want. I have to wait till my friends are ready for lunch. Yes, one thing that I talk to parents about all the time when they're starting our preschool is you really want to try to get your child's schedule for like how their day is aligned with our schedule. We go down for nap at 12:45. If your child's not normally napping until 1:30, that's something you want to start adjusting before they start school. And so I think that's one of the biggest challenges is adjusting your child's schedule to wherever the schedule is for the school that you're going to be going to. Because, it's hard for them. They might be used to sleeping at noon. Maybe they eat lunch at 11:30, they go to sleep at noon. And if they're here, they're going to be falling apart. They're going to be tired. They're going to be exhausted. They're going to be used to that nap time, even though it's not nap time at preschool yet. So I think that's one of the things, too, to really find out before your child starts anywhere is what does their day-to-day, look like?
Yeah, I think you answered that last question, which is how do we know when a child's ready to start preschool or kindergarten? Like a tip for parents. I think you just answered that. Combo answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do hear and sense a lot of anxiety. It's
Yeah.
not really sure what their child is going to experience. And I'm also hearing that the early childhood education staff is trained for that. We're
Right.
trained to
Right.
take
Absolutely.
care of kids, to build their resilience, to make them more independent. So it's important to define preschool.
One thing I always like to tell parents, and this is a little, looking glass into my life, is as I explained, I've been doing this since I was, a senior in high school. The day I dropped my daughter off at preschool, I cried. It's totally normal. It's totally normal. We worry. There are little ones, but again, as I said earlier, I can only speak for my school, but my teachers love coming to work every day. They love what they do. They love this age group. I have two teachers on staff who actually have their teaching credential. To teach elementary. They want this age group. This is where they want to be. And so again, just relying on the tenure of the teachers at the school, feeling comfortable to know, oh, okay, these teachers are going to take care of my kids. I'm not just dropping my kid off, and they're going to let my kid cry in the corner. That's, no, we're not. We're going to figure out what works to help your child transition in.
Yeah. So other than maybe reading on the website or through a brochure on what the school's, philosophy background is, really getting to know the people.
Absolutely. I mean, I personally am super excited about being able to tour in person again this year. My tours have been on Zoom for the last 3 years, and you're going to get a feel for a school as soon as you walk in that door. Some schools you might look around and think, oh goodness, no, I cannot send my child here. You might walk in and think, oh my goodness, I can totally see my child playing on the playground, having a great time here. You have to go with that gut feeling. And some schools you may not know when you walk in, and you need to listen to the tour. And I think that's my biggest advice to parents is tour lots of different schools. You really want to make sure that you see what's out there and tour lots of different places.
Yeah. And I'm also hearing that, don't let your brain be too overwhelmed with the actual content that's being presented to you. Just feel.
Yep.
Then by feeling first and then studying the words.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It always sounds a little cheesy when you say that you want your child's preschool to feel like a home away from home.
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, they spend a large portion of their day at preschool. And so you really want to make sure that it's going to be a good fit for not only for your child, but also, for your family.
I don't know where you are out there, but, there's your hair looks amazing.
Well, it's funny because the sun's right above me. So it's it's bouncing off my computer at me. So it's really like made my hair very bright.
Oh, but this is like a really good background. It feels like a virtual background. You know what? This
is our playground. Right? I'm out on the playground.
This is a perfect place to have a webinar. Just so you know. For your
Thank you.
If you're gonna have a tour, do it there.
Perfect. Will do.
Yeah. So yeah, it looks like we're towards the end, and we have lots of great tips from Laurie. I know that people are going to ask you for a part 2, but you know, this 30-minute session already included so many personal development suggestions, and also homework that parents need to do. And
right.
Can you tell us a little bit about, you know, when your school may be available for tours, and you know, that feeling we're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I start touring in the fall. I don't know when most schools start their touring process, but I do start touring in the fall. I open my calendar a month before touring starts, and then parents can access, you know, my calendar. They sign up for a tour. Like I said, I'm very excited. They're in person again for the first time in 3 years. And it's usually, you know, 2 to 3 families, depending on the day. And it's really an opportunity for me to talk kind of specifically about our curriculum, what we do with our children. I walk families through all of the different classrooms, all of our outdoor spaces. So you get to see all of our playgrounds and really just kind of see things in action. You know, you'll see our current students, you'll see our teachers engaging with our current students, and really just kind of see, you know, what we're all about. And then the application process kind of goes from there. One question I always get is, can I put my child on a wait list before I tour? No, because we really want you to come see us in action and see what we're about and see how we do things. And again, it goes back to that feeling, making sure that when you walk through that door, is it a place where you can see your child? You really want to know that before you apply to a school.
You're building a community, right? It's not just the teachers there. They're
right.
Children take up majority of the campus. It's about
Absolutely. And that is something that we do pride ourselves on, is community and getting parents involved and getting parents to meet other parents and start making those connections with other families too. Not just the kids making connections, but also the families making connections as well.
We're going to send our parents your way. It's just down the hill. So we're up the hill, rather. Yeah, but thank you so much for your time. I know it's a Friday afternoon, but
absolutely. My pleasure.
Thank you, Laurie.
All right. Thanks, Alice.
Bye.
Take care.